Hello and welcome to Forever Red Devils, and we are ramping up preparations for Manchester United to turn to the Premier League. This is your latest Manchester United news on a Tuesday morning, and we are less than a week before Ruben Amorim will officially take charge of a Manchester United side for the first time on Sunday when we travel and play against Ipswich. Now, some big news, some big injury boosts for United. Some interesting transfer news, as well as some early sort of conversations and rumours surrounding some current players and where they might stand with regards to Ruben Amorim. So lots to talk about in the show to come. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to it. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. And let's get into it, shall we? So basically, yesterday, Ruben Amorim took charge of training for the first time. And very interesting to see what would have actually gone on in training and the likes. And especially because, there's lots of conversations and rumors regarding what sort of formation, for example, Ruben Amorim is going to sort of take, and which sort of how the players are basically going to fit into that formation with regards to the potential wing backs. So we're going to see Mazraoui Diallo. Might we see somebody like an Amad Diallo in a bit of a different role? Work on Nacho. Where does Bruno Fernandes fit in with this role? Because you'll probably sort of be playing in, the two in the front rather sort of in the midfield. So lots to sort of really pick apart when it comes to what his first team could potentially look like. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in this evening show, where we're going to go through basically a potentially a sort of predicted 11 and how it might look like and what you guys think of that potentially predicted 11. But let's get into the early news here. Big injury update for Manchester United is the fact that there were a lot of players involved in training yesterday who have been away with injury for the last few weeks. So Mason Mount is coming back from injury. Yesterday, Kobe Mainoo, Till Malacia, as well as Luke Shaw, all took part in training yesterday with Ruben Amorim and all on the way back to full fitness, and huge to actually have those, as well as Eleni Yoro. So in terms of when they will officially return, we're not sure, but the fact that all of them are back in training would suggest that they should be available in the next few weeks, and we are going into the busiest period of the season, so they're going to need the likes of a Eleni Yoro, Luke Shaw, Till Malacia, for example. Kobe Mainoo has been a really big miss in the midfield. It'll be interesting because I think this weekend we're going to see Ugarte and Casemiro, but Kobe Mainoo will add a very big option for Ruben Amorim. So how they might fit into the side, we'll wait and see. But the big news is they are back in training and should all be back available very, very soon, which is huge news because we haven't seen Till Malacia or Luke Shaw play a part this season. And that left back role, for example, has been sort of mainly occupied by Diogo Dalot, who's not a natural left back. But with Mazraoui coming in, who plays right back, you then got a Dalot who's gone and sort of fills in that left back role. Now, I think that, especially with the sort of three at the back, would be very interesting to see. For example, is Luke Shaw going to be taking it as a wing back, for example? Is he going to play as a left centre back? Till Malacia, for example, does he sort of fit in that sort of wing back? Are they wing, or does he prefer to have sort of more wings in that sort of those wide positions? So lots to sort of talk about when it comes to how that formation might look. But the main thing is to get those two left backs back. So whatever formation you want, left-sided players that can occupy, especially Luke Shaw, for example, who's left-footed, and when he's at his best, is one of the key players for United that many a manager has relied on over the years. So he's a very, very important player to get back for Ruben Amorim and to get playing as soon as possible. And in terms of other players, now this is the interesting thing. It's like a new dawn really for certain Manchester United players. And the one thing about a new manager, for example, is you see players responding. And somebody we're going to talk about who's a very good record under new managers, Marcus Rashford. So Marcus Rashford has not had the best of seasons for United and is under a lot of pressure. Didn't have a particularly good season last season, had a great first season under Erik ten Hag, but didn't have a particularly good season last season and hasn't had a good start to things this year. However, he is a player who characteristically has usually started very well under new managers. Now, yesterday he did post on social media, say top session today with himself in the training session yesterday with Ruben Amorim. He is such an important player for United to unlock under Ruben Amorim. If you can get Rashford firing to where he was in the past, you can unlock a player who can hit 20, 30 goals in a season. And there's not a lot of that in United. I think Rasmus Højlund will become that. Bruno Fernandes is that, especially on being on penalty duties. Marcus Rashford is the only sort of player who's got to those sort of numbers before and has the capacity to get to those numbers right now. Unfortunately, he's currently low in confidence and a lot of other issues. But if Ruben Amorim can get him right, it'll go a long way towards salvaging this United season. Because he's got such a high threshold. You speak to players, for example, past players and the likes, and they speak about players, who who's been really impressed them, for example, when they've trained with them, and they all name Marcus Rashford in terms of the amount of talent he has. And we've seen the talent in runs. He's often gone on runs, but he's struggled to always sort of maintain that consistency throughout his career for a several-month period and the likes. And that's what Ruben Amorim needs to try and find. How does he get Marcus Rashford firing consistently, not just going, 6 goals in 4 games and then, 2-month period, nothing. How does he get it where he's basically scoring on a monthly basis, 3 to 4 goals? And that's a big thing that they need to try and get right, because we can't go to the transfer market at this stage. You're not going to go and find a 30-goal player in January. We can't go to the market. We don't have the money ready to go to the market in January, let alone go big in the summer, because we still got to try and offload players like an Anthony, which was a really poor signing. We spent a lot of money on the likes of Mason Mount, who's barely played. We spent a lot of money on Lenny Yoro, who hasn't played yet. So we spent a lot of money on lots of different players who have not really fired just yet. I'm not saying Lenny needs to take responsibility. He's very much a long-term player, but just we spent the money, we haven't actually seen it at all just yet. So Marcus Rashford is someone you've got to try and almost treat like a new signing, because if you can get him right and you can get him firing, it does become like a new signing compared to what we've seen so far in the season. Garnacho and Diallo started to come right in the last sort of month. But Garnacho was chipping with a lot of goals so far this season. He's had a slight dip in the last month, but then sort of scored that worldie over the weekend. But Marcus Rashford has not been scoring the goals. So, that again, we talk about players in the squad that you can suddenly sort of revitalize. Then it becomes like having a new player in the squad. And Marcus Rashford could be exactly that. Similar to Joshua Zirkzee, who's been playing but hasn't scored a goal since the first day of the Premier League season. And you've got to try and make sure that you get those sort of players right, because the quality's there, and if you can't go to the market, you've got to start getting the best out of players. And we often see this, we see some players, for example, who just weren't really working with certain managers, and under a new manager, they're thriving. Jadon Sancho had a fallout with Erik ten Hag, and even before that wasn't playing particularly well, went to the Bundesliga, sort of regained his form. So, it's not always just a case of a player not be good enough. Sometimes the system doesn't suit them. Sometimes they don't resonate with the manager, for example. Sometimes the environment doesn't enable them to perform. And with the change of environment, change of manager, hopefully we are going to see certain players step up into a whole new role and find a new threshold and a different level of performance. That's what we're really hoping, because if we don't, then we're stuck with players who are, just eating up a lot of wages and not contributing a lot, which is not ideal. So apparently there are 2 players which, the United main chiefs and sort of the director of football and the likes of that are really looking forward to seeing under Ruben Amorim are Mason Mount and Rasmus Højlund. 2 big money signings that have not really paid off just yet. Now, Rasmus Højlund, I think, has been a very good signing. He has scored goals. He has scored important goals. He looks the real deal, but he just looks like he's going to be the real deal in 3 to 4 years. And I felt sorry for the fact that he hasn't had players around him to really nurture him. Mason Mount, on the other hand, he needs to start sort of stepping up, really. And he has been very injury prone. So again, you can't hate the guy for not having contributed enough. But these are 2 players that need to go on a bit of a run and need to start really stepping up to their price tag. And they are 2 players who obviously we've identified in the past as future players that are going to be really, really important. And I think those are going to be priority players Ruben Amorim will want to get going and get into good form as soon as possible, because we've spent the money on them. And it's obviously when you have a meeting about the squad and the likes of that, he probably gives his thoughts. And to be fair, the directors and the likes will also give their thoughts, and they'll sit there and say, listen, we've got these type of players, these are the type of profiles that we're looking at. For example, young player, high threshold, next generation, hopefully long-term contracts, to try and build a squad and keep adding to that squad rather than having to overhaul a squad continuously, which is what we've had to continuously and keep doing over the years. So this is an opportunity to try and get these kind of players right, so we can stop talking about failed transfers. Because right now that's all anything we talk about is failed transfers. Anthony, Till Malacia, Mason Mount, Jadon Sancho. I'm trying to think of anyone. Who else has been a great signing? Those are probably the main ones at the moment. Joshua Zirkzee, now people talking about him. He's been a good signing. It's very early to tell. He's only been at the club for 4 months, but he's not contributed in those 4 months as much as we like. Well, 3 months really. But that's the problem, is that we've got far too many players who are signing and they're not coming off. We need to start changing the narrative on that, and we can obviously only change the narrative on new signings once we sign them, but we can definitely change the narrative on older signings if we can get them right. And I don't think Mason Mount's a bad signing. He had a great season when they won the Champions League. I don't think that Lenny Yoro is a bad signing, but he needs to get playing. I don't think that Till Malacia was necessarily a bad signing from a player point of view. When he's played, he's looked alright, but he hasn't played a lot. Rasmus Højlund, not a bad signing on if you look at where he might become. But if he doesn't get there, he becomes another failed signing. There's lots for him to sort of really pick apart and to focus on. And when it comes now to a bit of recruitment, obviously lots to talk about with regards to the midfield for next year. So yesterday we spoke about the fact that Christian Eriksen is not expected to renew his contract. Well, United are not expected to give him a new contract and will be leaving the club at the end of the season. As a result, we are going to have to replace him. We're going to have to go into the market and look to bring in midfielders. Now, according to Graham Bailey, who is considered a bit of a transfer expert, United are looking at 2 midfielders at the moment. One, and youngsters as well, by the way. One is 17-year-old Chris Rigg, who's currently playing at Sunderland in the Championship. He's got 3 goals already this season in 14 matches. And another youngster that we're looking at long-term wise is Sverre Nypan, who is a 17-year-old Norwegian midfielder who's currently playing for Rosenborg. And these are kind of the profiles that'll be interesting to start seeing as we move more of these players. 2 17-year-olds, for example. We'll probably look at promoting like Kobe Mano, but we've got to find the next generation as well. And players like this, for example, I mean, this year for Rosenborg, Nypan's got 7 goals, 7 assists in 26 matches after he's 17 years old, turns 18 in December. So by the time we look to sign him, for example, he'll be sort of turning 19. So he'll still be a youngster, still be 18, for example, but, not quite a sort of teenager. He will be looking at somebody who can come in, start, play a couple off the bench, for example, but be a mainstay in 2 to 3 years' time. So that's going to be a whole interesting in terms of the type of profile players we're now moving towards signing. Players like that, players like, who aren't going to play week in, week out immediately, but the long-term replacements. Casemiro, for example, the long-term replacement there is Ugarte. More short-term replacement, really, short-term, medium-term is Ugarte. So Casemiro moves on, Ugarte comes in, Kobe Mano, for example, is going to move up as sort of a more box-to-box midfielder. Cool, you can see the succession plan. At the moment, you've got a Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire as your sort of more senior defenders, and then you've got, the medium-term, you've got Lisandro Martinez and Matheus Stellini and Euro for the future. So, for example, centre-back stocks are actually looking really good from a United point of view. Full-backs, for example, Dallas still very young, Mazraoui is not old, so you're looking at pretty okay there. You've got to add a left back, and again, they're looking for a young profile left back. So there's just certain parts of the squad that you sort of want to see, being added to. But it's about looking at, do we want to bring in the older players, for example? Do you want to bring in the younger players, next generation? And you have to have both. You have to have experience. That's one thing. You have to have experience in the squad. You can't underestimate what it means to have had 12 years in the Premier League, for example. Look at Johnny Evans. Johnny Evans, was brought in, just to train a little bit, and they said, no, listen, this guy's fit enough, and he's actually had a man of the match performance already this season because he got that experience to understand how things work. He doesn't have the physical capability of some of the youngsters, for example. He's not as quick as he once was. He won't be as fit as he once was, but he's got that experience. We've seen what a Thiago Silva does for Chelsea, for example, and how much value he brings because he's so experienced and he understands how it all works and how his body works, how he, what his limitations are and the likes of that. So lots to talk about there. Right, this evening we will be talking about a predicted 11 for Ruben Amorim, so make sure you come and join us then. Please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll